There's a lot of energy in the tides. It comes from the pull of the moon on the sea. You can harvest some of it by using giant barrages across estuaries to trap the high tides, and then you let it out through turbines. There's one on the Rance estuary in Brittany in France, but they're huge constructions blocking off the entire estuary. Less invasively to the environment, you can just put a turbine in the tidal flow, a single individual turbine, in an area where the water speed is high. The UK's actually got a lot of sites like that, enough if we could use them all, to supply about a third of the electricity we use. The leader in the race is the UK company, the pioneering company called Marine Current Turbines Limited. They've installed a 1.2 megawatt CGen turbine in Strangford Narrows in Northern Ireland. But there are lots of other propeller type designs. And there are lots of other designs as well. You can have rotors mounted inside ducts which speed up the water flow. And there are lots of variants of that idea too. And it's not just the UK. There are projects like this all around the world. At the moment there's many dozens of them in various scales. It's a big, amazing burst of creative innovation going on around the world, in the UK and elsewhere. Many of the people involved came to London in November 2010 for the Tidal Summit, organised by TidalToday.com.
The key thing is that there are opportunities here in terms of security of supply, in terms of carbon saving, in terms of building a brand new sector and a manufacturing sector and a generation sector within the UK, and the economic benefits coming from that. As I said, we're in a unique position in the UK in terms of our levels of resource and in terms of the expertise that we have in the UK. I think the important thing is to make sure that we maximise those opportunities and reap the best benefits we can out of them.
At the end of the day, what we want is a consumer market for tidal turbines which looks exactly like offshore wind or onshore wind turbines. You want a number of credible manufacturers that any given customer can go and make an educated decision predicated on a certain operational data sheet. So I don't see it as a competition. I see it much more as which form of energy is going to be most competitive in a global fuel mix context. That's certainly the way that I view it. I think that there'll be significant challenges in trying to get free-stream tidal power as cheap as onshore wind, but I think offshore wind is already very much where we should be pricing, and I think the immediate aspiration of the industry is to make sure that we come in at the same cost as offshore wind, and then we need to work the supply chain to come down that curve. Of course, the onshore wind market has had an incredible decade. It's effectively tripled its output and halved its cost. So if we have the same lofty aspirations over the next 10 years, then we are going to be competitive with offshore wind, and we're going to push towards onshore wind.
I referred to these many projects that are existing at the moment, more than 100 in parallel. And I think it's the right time to make one of these projects commercially attractive. So that's the most important step that we have to overcome. And to achieve that, we need to, of course, bring down the cost without losing safety in the design. Yeah? So you have to have an overall solution covering the technology of the turbine and support structure, and you have to have a cheap or inexpensive way to install the turbine in a safe manner. So it's very important. First, the safety is a very important step for this installation mechanism, because you're putting people out in the environment. The turbine, of course, is not operated manned, but the installation is done with manned personnel, so you have to have a safe mechanism to bring something in. And of course it has to be, from the cost side, charming, so your overall electricity costs are bearable and you can sell that electricity to the market.
And it's a very buoyant industry to currently be in, using the term buoyant and tidal in references to marine technologies. Mainly because there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot more potential on the table now than there has ever been. And we're talking about some substantial projects rather than just arguing about differences of types of technologies and research and development techniques. And it's now moving as an industry is starting to mature from being small-scale inventions to having the big players of manufacturing industries playing a role. Now, they may not be very active, and some are actually more active than others, but that's indicative of the delegates that we actually have here at the conference for the fourth time we've actually run this. And it's a very different flavour to how it was 4 years ago when we were looking at this particular industry thinking, what's the future of this? It wasn't until 2003 with Marine Current Turbines installing their CGen device with 2 rotors that we actually had anything in the water.
By the time we've installed about 600 or 700 megawatts, we would be as cheap as offshore wind, which still needs a subsidy, and a bit more, and we'd be cheaper than offshore wind and probably wouldn't need a subsidy. But a lot depends on the learning curve only works on each technology. So if you have 3 different technologies, you need 3 times the installed capacity to get down the learning curve, basically. We're lucky to have had North Sea oil, which is beginning to go, and the gas fields, but that won't last a lot longer. And then we'll be a little island with virtually no energy resources other than the natural resources like wind and tidal stream and so on. And I think that recognition is beginning to come across.